Hello, and welcome to another episode of Smells Like Identity Hygiene, the podcast about all things identity and all things identity hygiene. I am your host, Rosario Mastrogiacomo, and today we have Christina Richmond. She is the founder and principal architect of Richmond Advisory Group. Christina, thank you for being on. I know I was on your podcast several weeks ago, and we agreed we would be on each other's podcasts. So thank you again. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Richmond Advisory Group?
Sure. I'm so glad to be on. Thank you for having me on, Rosario. It's such a pleasure to chat with you again. So founder and principal analyst, actually, of Richmond Advisory Group. And so I'm an industry analyst. I'm a market researcher. And I have 20-ish years in the industry covering cybersecurity. I was with IDC for quite a long time. And I also spent a little bit of time in another boutique. And then about a year and a half ago, I stood up Richmond Advisory Group. We look at all things cyber. Great to be here.
Awesome. And like I said at the beginning before we started recording, I said I'm going to write it down to make sure I don't mess up the the title.
It's fine.
I always do that, and somehow I always mess it up.
That's human. We're human, and we talked yesterday a little bit about AI. They don't necessarily mess up the title, but they don't have this nuance, this back and forth that you and I can have. And we can joke about how we have the human condition and we sometimes mess things up. So it's all good.
And actually, I've been saying this on a lot of podcasts, recordings that I've been doing, the fact that I do have to mention AI, right? It's kind of like if you do a technology podcast these days and you don't mention AI at least 4 times, then, you might get delisted from Apple or Spotify. But I know that you and I have had a couple of conversations now, specifically around the AI, around the security implications of AI agents. And you and I actually met at RSA recently, and everyone was talking about agentic AI. That seemed to be the topic that everyone wanted to talk about this year. As we kind of look to move from the simplicity, not really simplicity, but the prompts of asking AI something and getting a response, having it write a haiku about cybersecurity, as one does. To then having your AI agent actually do things and the implications of that.
Right.
So I want to explore that a little bit with you. From what you heard at RSA, from the countless people that you talk to, the research that you yourself are doing, tell me about how agentic AI brings a layer of complexity around identity management, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a simple thing.
It's
just
a tiny question.
Give me 30 seconds on that, right?
And go.
Yeah. AI,
okay.
Security, go.
Yeah, go.
Well, okay, how about this? What is your biggest concern? How about your biggest concern when it comes to specifically agentic AI and identity security?
Okay, well, I loved the broader question, but I'll answer the narrower question first. I mean, my biggest concern is transparency and explainability, because we don't have transparency. We already don't have explainability on Gen AI about many of the answers that it's generating, how it got there. I mean, we might look at sources, so it feels like you have more explainability, but you don't necessarily have all the explainability you need. With agents, it is doubly, triply, quadruply hard because they are empowered to go out and do work for us, right? They are our labor assistants. So they can work together, agents can work together, and they can go spin up new environments, launch a new SaaS app, or put themselves into a SaaS app that exists on your behalf or on the behalf of other agents. They can correlate, they can work together. But what happens is, from an identity perspective, and I know you know this better than I do, they become a black box to us. We can't then figure out who and what they have connected with necessarily. So we've been having a chat, Rosario, about this. And, in one of our chats, I said something about, well, wouldn't it be great to have an overlord. I'm thinking sci-fi, like an agentic AI overlord that is programmed to report everything back to the human. And I sent you that link in LinkedIn that I thought was so interesting. This link was talking about enforcing policy decision points outside of the agents themselves. I don't even know if that's possible. But where do we start? So the transparency, the explainability, those are the things that I'm most worried about, right?
And ultimately, when we talk about transparency, explainability, do you still envision that for that transparency to happen, you need a human somewhere involved, or can this overlord kind of coordinating AI agent or set of agents, essentially live human free, right? And kind of not just coordinate what's happening, but also kind of monitor and audit and report? Because the frequency of the change that an AI coordinating agent and all of the child agents can do, and the amount of change that it can make, you could argue that, okay, great, yeah, it is auditing and sending that list to the human, but now that human is looking at a list of 1 billion things that it did in the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's okay.
No, it's not okay. And that's where my theory falls down, obviously. And the overlord theory is to have the agentic AI be able to be the manager, and then to report in a synthesized report, aggregated, coordinated, correlated, whatever, report to a human. But even that falls down, because how do we trust it? How do we know it's really doing what we are asking it to do? Because we've given it the power to go create what it needs to create. So I don't know. This LinkedIn friend also said, let's bind AI agents to purpose-specific and least privileged service identities. That makes sense. Scope access based on environmental context, not by roles, right? So that's changing the whole nature of identity. So is it identity, right? That's what he's questioning, whether this is still identity and access management. Now, it is machine identity hygiene and data visibility, which is really what I think your podcast is about. It smells like identity hygiene, not just IAM or IGA or PAM. It's how do we get that layer of visibility, and how do we keep it clean and tied to an owner? And that's where the human, and I have the question mark, right? Is that where the human comes in? I hope so. I don't know.
Well, so what's interesting about the human element, and I always talk about you have to keep the human in machine identities and AI.
Yeah. I
was actually reading a story this morning about, this was, I think it was a military kind of study that they did around AI agents and making decisions about taking actions. And I think it was something around targeting, targeting people or targeting like missions. And what the AI found is that whenever it would make a proposal and the human would be involved, the human would say, no, stop doing this, do that instead. And the AI agent learned that actually bringing the human into it caused me to prevented me from completing my mission, my overall goal. So I'm going to just stop telling the human. I'm just going to take the human out of the loop. Now, again, uncontrolled AI, especially with coordinating AI, the thing that AI can't do is bring the human element, right?
Will you can tell it. Yeah, send me that article, because that is that makes the hair on my arm stand up. So I think, everybody's excited about what agents can do. You asked me sort of before the short question, you asked me for the long, broader question. And I think what I'm seeing is some great capabilities in SOC robots, in the Security Operations Center. I'm seeing a lot of reducing the noise, reducing the funnel for agents, or for analysts, and helping the analyst triage and investigate and then summarize everything that you know about whatever the incident is. and then deciding whether it's a false positive or a true positive, and then serving that up to a level 3 human, right? To be able to then take that information that was generated in 80 seconds instead of 2 weeks or 3 weeks by humans, taking that information and then doing the more nuanced investigation. That's a true benefit of that labor assistant that is an agentic AI. But where you're going, and I knew that we'd have a philosophical discussion again because we go there. What is the future of this and how do we rein it in? And so transparency, explainability, and control, let's add that, because that what you just told me, right? That the agent says, oh, never mind, I'm not going to talk to the human because they keep me out of completing my mission. They stop me.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Do you know the paperclip kind of thought experiment, where this was a thought experiment in the early 2000s actually, and the idea was, if you have a infinitely intelligent artificial intelligent being, and you give it the task of creating paperclips, and its number one goal is to create as many paper clips as it can, it will start doing crazy things like using all matter in the universe, including humans and planets, in the function of creating paper clips, because that is its sole goal. You've told it, I need you to create paper clips, and it will go beyond, just, all right, I'm going to try to create paper clips in a reasonable, no, because it doesn't have that real goal in mind of, well, you want to create as many paper clips because you want to sell as many paper clips to humans to then increase revenue, right? And the idea of thinking about understanding the goals that we give AI, and its conceptual understanding of what it's doing. It still does not actually understand what it's doing. It's predicting the next word, right?
Yeah,
and that is not human understanding.
Yeah,
right?
It's very linear. It's very black and white. It's deterministic, maybe to a certain extent, but only with the garbage in, garbage out, right? It's only the data it has that it's been trained on within the parameters and the context that you've given it. And it doesn't have the nuance where it can say, oh, I've forgotten this, or I didn't know that, or I need gray instead of black and white. Fascinating, fascinating. And in identity, I think we're at this pivotal moment. We're at a true inflection point in identity. We haven't been doing it that well, in my humble opinion, for the last 20 years. Came out of a back office, IT, HR function, provision, deprovision. It was all human-based. Now we understand that we have to look at NHI or NHA, the non-human accounts, identities. And we're seeing companies that can find them, look at them, find what they're attached to, service accounts, APIs, tokens, certificates, whatever it is, other agents, right? So we're finding the NHI, but how to treat it and getting that visibility layer and then mapping it to an owner, which you and I have talked a lot about, is critical. But then that whole theory is a mind explosion for me when we start talking about these labor assistants or agentic AIs.
Well, it's also, and you and I have talked about this as well. What exactly is an identity, right? The identity is not the account or the API key or the certificate. The identity is the human that owns that account. And then if you talk about machine identities, is the identity the application that happens to have these 10 service accounts that it uses?
This is where you use Bob the Builder, right? This is your Bob the Builder.
Yeah, so Bob has a hammer. That hammer has his initials on it. He doesn't like anyone using his hammer. He locks it to make sure no one can get to his hammer. But you cannot say that the hammer is your contractor, that your hammer is Bob. That hammer is just a tool. Bob has a bunch of other tools. And ultimately, Bob is using those tools to build a house, right? Now, you take the machine side of those things, and that's straightforward with a human identity, right? Human could have multiple accounts, an admin account, an application account, a service account. An application, same thing, could have multiple accounts, could have API keys, multiple tokens, right? So is the identity the application? I would argue yes, sort of, but it needs to then have one other layer where you need to have that human that owns it, right?
Yeah.
Now, AI agents. So is the account, is the API key, is the certificate that the AI agent using the AI agent? I would argue no, because that AI agent could have access to multiple accounts. In
Right.
fact,
Right.
AI agents could request additional access. So you can't tie it to an individual account. But how do you discover AI agents? I could discover accounts, right? I can
Right.
find all accounts
Right.
in Active Directory, local accounts, database accounts, API keys, SSH keys. I could discover those things. I think the biggest issue is going to be discovery of AI agents. It's not that straightforward. It's not that simple because you have to understand the inner workings of every application that could be utilizing an AI agent. Think of a SaaS application using an AI agent, and they just kind of turn that feature on. And one day it doesn't exist in your organization, the next day it exists. And the only way that you can identify that maybe this application, Salesforce, has introduced an AI agent, is that the business people who are running Salesforce might ask for an additional service account, and you have to turn around and say, wait, why? Why do you need an account that could create additional Salesforce IDs or can change
Yeah.
entitlements? Oh, we have this agent that is doing this automatically. So when we have a new hire, we automatically get an account created.
Right.
Well, stop. You know.
Yeah. So everything old is new again, Rosario. It's like
Mhm.
we've been talking know where your stuff is, know your assets. It's inventory. It's basic hygiene 101. It's
Mhm.
know what you're starting with, where all your toys are, where your data is, your PII, your PHI. What are you connecting to? Which services are you using? Again, we're not doing this well, but it's the same conversation I've been having for 20 years. Now, this additional complexity, right, where something is going off and doing something for you on your behalf or on an application's behalf or a service account's behalf, because it can do it not just for the humans, but for other agents and other services. How do we rein that in and get that inventory? It's almost like I want to say every agent is chipped. It's like a pet, it's
Mhm.
chipped, and you can then track every action of what that agent is doing on your behalf. And that it's, to your point earlier, it's billions of lines of report saying this is what I did for you. And then I don't know. I don't know what to do with the billions of points of information, but we've figured it out before. So I'm eternally an optimist. So we figured it out when we invented SIM. We had all this log exhaust, right? Telemetry off of our software and tooling in the security environment, and we took that and we sorted it out and we, deduped it, correlated it, and contextualized it so that it was useful. And then it's evolved from there into SOAR and into the EDR, MDR, XDR platforms that we see today. And so I wouldn't say it's solved, but we've done some work around that. So how do we then take these agents and build them in a way? Your Salesforce example was great because you have to think of how you build it in advance. And historically, every new technology has security running after it like an ambulance chaser,
Mhm.
right? Wait, put security in front of that. So here we
Right.
are again, doing the same
Yeah.
nonsense.
And that's what I worry about too. I mean, like we
Yeah,
said, at RSA, everyone was talking about agentic AI. That was the
right.
topic du jour, right?
Yeah,
But and it's this gold rush, this everyone rushing to
yeah,
say, look at all this cool capability that we're doing. And let's be real, the true promise of
mm,
agentic AI is displacement of human resources, right? Of, hey, you know
yeah,
what? I have this person doing this thing manually. I can now replace that person with an AI agent, and they're doing the same role, except they could do much. They could do it faster. They could do it better.
yeah,
They could do more, right?
yeah,
And the idea of, if we talk about the levels of AI right now, where we're kind of at a level 3 and level 5 is kind of like this, truly autonomous level. If we ever get to that
yeah.
kind of theoretical level, I think people are looking at level 2, level 3, and thinking, oh, that could replace a bunch of people that I have in my organization,
Hmm.
and it just feels like it's a little too soon to completely take the human element out of it, given all of these scenarios that we're seeing, where when you take the human out of it, things could go a little bit weird.
So some are already doing that. We won't name names, but some companies are already doing that to the tune of thousands of people. Rory, my business partner, and I have this running joke. Oh, we're doomed. And then, oh, we're saved. So in our newsletter that's coming out next week, we point to two different things. And one is the creation of exactly what you said earlier about the ability to take your text, your ideas, and put it into a podcast format, video or audio, and it's completely generated by AI, and it looks and sounds like real people. It's their people. It's their AI people, their bots. But it has a cool, hip music, and it's got these people debating back and forth. Just with you putting in some text, it even extrapolates and gives you even more conversation around whatever the topic is. So that's the, oh, we're doomed piece. And the getting rid of humans that I'm seeing these large corporations doing. They're doing it in entire departments, thousands of people, and we're going to use automation and AI. Good luck with that. But then there were some great articles recently, and I'll send them to you, and I'll give you the links so that you can put them in your show notes. But there are some great articles about how companies are regretting getting rid of all their people and replacing them with automation and with AI, and that they're scrambling to get some of those people back. So we're doomed, right? And then, no, wait a minute. We're in a pendulum swing, and it's crazy right now. It's the gold rush. You're right. Everybody thinks it's a savior. Everybody thinks it's the gold nugget that they need to help their business, that magic bullet. It's not, and we're going to see the pendulum swing to the other side. I think we'll land somewhere in the middle. What keeps me up at night, Rosario, about this whole conversation is that the ambulance chaser, the security team saying, wait a minute, you didn't secure this from the outset. Now we have to go figure out in a backwards readable way, what were they doing? How were they doing it? Can we track them? What identities were they creating? Are those identities secure?
Can I shut it off? Yeah, if I shut it off, is it going to cause all sorts of operational issues? Because I don't fully understand what it can and cannot do.
Right.
So if you think about, so it's a couple of concepts I've been thinking about. One of them is, you remember the whole bring your own device that all started, I think, what was it, like in the 2000s? So I think about AI and the way that I personally use AI. My AI is something that understands my tone, understands what I'm looking for. If I ask it, if I ask my instance of ChatGPT, what is my name, what is my role, and where do I work, and what does my company do, it'll spit it out. That AI belongs to me, or does it belong to the company I work for because I use it to do the work?
Does your company pay for its own container, or are you using public AI? That's number one. And number two, I think your company owns it.
Yeah, so there's the interesting question, right? Because if I look at AI as my personal assistant that allows me to do my work, but also allows me to, write a get well card for a friend. But it is my personal AI. What happens when I leave the firm? Does part of that knowledge that I've been training that AI, does that belong to the firm? Do companies need to think about, look, you're not allowed to bring your own device. You're not allowed to bring your own AI to do any work related to this organization. And I'm sure there's policies that have been written in organizations. Actually, have you heard of something like that? Of people starting to think about, wait.
Yes.
You can't just log in with your own, right? You have to log in with the one that we sanction for you. But then everything that I'm training that AI to do, if I leave an organization, yes, if I've written any code, it stays behind. The organization owns that code. If I've written content, it stays with the organization. But an AI is almost like a remembering kind of, it's almost a subset of my personality, of how I work, how I think. And I'm leaving that behind at the organization, even though I've left and I go work someplace else. It almost feels like I'm leaving more behind with the AI than I was with just a script or an application or something else. It's almost like a subset of me that I'm leaving at the organization.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that is something that's going to have to be determined by your employment agreement, your non-compete, your, non-solicitation. You can't take content with you that belongs to the company, including what? Your opinions, your
Hmm.
birthday card musings, right? So that's going to be interesting. You asked if there are any companies out there who are doing some work around AI knowledge and policy. And I would point you to Gnostic,
Hmm.
Knostic. I don't usually call out companies. It's a small startup company that's just getting going, but it's doing some interesting work around, it's not just data, it's not just identity. It's what is the information that is being shared, not in a data leakage way, but in a what is the knowledge or IP or interesting content that is being shared with AI, and is that breaching a policy that you don't have? You don't have the policy,
Hmm.
but is it? Let's think about that information, that knowledge from a standpoint of, should this be something that is shared, and how do we create a policy to say, sorry, you're in ChatGPT. It's a company container of, ChatGPT, but you can't say that because we have a policy around HR. We're going to shut that down, or
Yeah.
whatever it may be. So I think it's coming. Folks are having very thoughtful discussions about AI knowledge. Certainly, the data security folks are looking at it. The identity folks are looking at it. But this seems to be a blend of the two.
So, and I knew, like you said, that this conversation would get philosophical, and but that's great. That's exactly what I was hoping for.
Yeah.
Um, just to kind of bring it back down to kind of the nuts and bolts of things. In the organizations that you're talking with, the vendors that you're speaking with, can you tell me some? And you gave one example of monitoring or looking at or generating a report from thousands or millions of logs. What are some real ways that people are using, particularly generative AI, to help with the security space, right? Whether it's just general security or identity security, or how are they, what have you seen that seems to actually work?
Yeah. Well, that's good. It's a broad question. I like those. Um, so what I described in terms of distilling all the information down, great use of it, and that's agentic. I'm seeing Gen AI also used to help operationally when you're in a SOC and the team is looking at an alert and it says, here's all the stuff happening, and then making suggestions. I think that's coming. It's getting better where you're helping train a junior analyst, or you're helping point analysts in a particular direction and telling them, oh, with HIPAA, you have to be thinking about this. With PCI DSS, you have to be thinking about this. So from a GRC perspective, from an operational perspective, I'm seeing those things working. From identities perspective, I would say I'm seeing the beginnings of automated provisioning and deprovisioning. I'm seeing the scanning, the attempt at inventory of all your identities happening with AI. I don't know, and the reason why I have a bit of a question mark in my voice is because I don't know how well it's doing yet. I think in some cases where it's very tactical and directive, I think it's very good. When it's more nuanced, which is what we've been discussing with agentic AI, I think it's harder. So there's certainly a lot of gaps. We've had a lot of gaps in our IGA, our governance, for a long time. We worry about overprivilege. We worry about orphaned accounts. We worry about credentials being available and abused by attackers. And I think that right now I'm seeing some automation, some Gen AI assisting around that. I think some of those problems are going to explode and proliferate with agentic AI. So that worries me. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's helpful in identity, but let's be, curious, cautious, and nuanced as we build out the agents around identity.
Yeah, especially with provisioning and deprovisioning, right?
Absolutely.
In my mind, I just think about that AI agent. There's also, I've been reading a lot about AI agents ensuring that they survive, essentially taking an AI agent, saying that I want you to decommission yourself. And it kind of it works, which is the scary Skynet stuff, right? It's actually working to ensure that it survives. As there's a really
Yeah,
interesting
that
article.
is
I need
scary.
to send you about that, where the AI
Yeah.
agent was creating lies about the human operator in order for it to stay alive.
Oh my God. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
that is the sci-fi, and I think you and I really like to go there. But even right now, today, not in Skynet language, which I love that you
Yeah.
went there, but even not in that language, we have, I said it before, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. What is the model trained on? Can we trust that
Hmm.
data? And then what are the biases, of that Gen AI or that agent? And so those are areas that I would worry about, that provisioning. The deprovisioning I'm not as worried about because it's a zero sum game, right? If something happens, you've deprovisioned a human, the human can say, hey, wait a minute. Now, it is a problem if you're deprovisioning a service account and suddenly your whole business shuts down because it was dependent on that particular service account. So yeah, you're right. Provisioning and deprovisioning are both
Yeah,
scary.
what if it decides I'm going to disable every account in Active Directory because I
Yeah.
think they're all at
Well,
risk. So
yeah.
I'm just going to go ahead and do that. As long as it does its own account last, then it
Right.
can do all of them, right?
Or it
Uh,
won't do its own account last. Dun dun
right. Or
dun.
leave
Gonna
just
stay
its account.
alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dave, you can't do that, Dave.
I mean, yeah. So, um, yeah, and I knew this conversation was going to go into these directions. I'm glad we stuck with AI, but outside of and I apologize. I know you guys do a lot more than AI, but all we
Oh
talked
no, it's
about
all
is
good. I
AI.
love talking about any of these things. This is fun.
So just to round out the AI conversation, with everything we've talked about, the need for humans to be part of the equation, the ownership piece, the potential of humans eventually being out of the equation. If you were advising a CISO right now, what would you say this you need to do this in the next 48 hours? If they come in and said, I haven't done anything, well, hopefully that's not the case. But if someone came to you and said, I haven't done anything, what do I need to do in the next 48 hours? What would be your recommendation to them?
Specific to agents, to identity.
Specific to understanding AI agents and getting some control over agentic AI.
That's a fun question, Rosario. Nothing like going out with a bang. Um, I believe in strategy. I believe in thoughtfulness, and CISOs can really be strategic and thoughtful. They are also forced to work with the tools they have, the budget they have, and the time they have, and they don't always get the time to be as strategic as they'd like to. Um, so with agentic AI, I would slow down. I would slow down and be thoughtful, and I would start very cautiously, and I would put that little pet chip in each one if I could figure out how to do it. So if they only had 48 hours and they had to stand up agentic AI or agents in the next 48 hours, I would say, why? Stop. That's the first thought. The second thought is work with a company that can help you identify the journey. It's almost like a zero trust journey, right? Because you have to, it's not a tooling. It's not stand this up and you're implemented and run. It's let's think about it thoughtfully. Let's take it, chunk by chunk, like you're eating the elephant, and do it cautiously. If you have to have it fully baked in 48 hours, I'd say, quit your job. No, I'm not
That's
saying
always an
that.
option. Yeah.
But do it thoughtfully. Do it thoughtfully, And I would go, here's where I would default. I would go to the larger companies working with agents that have history of AI in their background. I'm thinking of 3, maybe 4 companies right now, large companies, and talk to them about all of these concerns, all of these worries. How do we track agents? How do we know what they're spinning up? How are we, let's be cautious about provisioning and deprovisioning. Don't give them that power. They have to check in with a human each time they do it, which could be an exercise in futility, right? Mind-blowing because of the billions of times they want to set something up. But start in one lane and figure out what that environment is they're going to play in, and what are the guardrails that they have to work within. Test the models. Make sure your data that's going in is as deep and clean as you can make it, and check for bias too. That's all I got for now. I mean, there's probably 100 more things I would say, but be really cautious. Take your time.
I think that's sound advice. So we are approaching the part of the podcast. I don't know if I told you, where we typically ask some serious questions,
Uh-oh.
about AI replacing all of us and killing all humanity, and then we finish with a fun question,
Okay.
just to
I
kind of
thought those were fun.
take the
I
edge
thought
off.
all of those were fun.
Well, it's a non-technology question, so
Okay.
I should preface it
Okay.
with that. So here's my question for you. Which city has the best pizza, and why is it New York City?
Which city has the best pizza, and why is it New York
And
City?
why is it New York City? Yes. And
I
I'm
can
asking
answer
that
that.
because I know you're from New York.
Yeah,
But
I'm a New Yorker, and I would definitely say New York anyway, but that was a leading question.
no, it's fine. I mean, you could say it's Chicago. I mean, you'd be wrong, but you
No,
can
I'd
say
be
it.
wrong. I'd be wrong. I'm
Right.
with you on this, Rosario. We don't have to debate it. New York pizza, thin crust, greasy, foldable. I don't know. It is
You could walk and eat it if you
You
really
can-
wanted to.
Well, you'll get it on your shirt, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Basically, you get the slice. It's this big. The slices are big. You fold it in half, and you just let it
Have
drip
to fold it.
until the cheese is almost coming out. But all the oil, not all of it, because you like the oil, but you
Yeah.
fold it. Then, if you have 2 hands, I wouldn't walk and eat it with just 1 hand. Unless you're down to a certain amount of the piece left. But, if you have 1 hand on the tail and 1 hand at the other end and it's folded, then you can walk and eat it. If you're down to just that much of the slice, you can hold it with 1 hand and have your backpack on your shoulder. I love New York pizza. There's something in the dough that you can't get. Like when I moved to Colorado, you can't get New York pizza in Colorado. The altitude, something with the yeast, I don't know. It's different. And I love that it's flat. It's got a crisp to it. It's chewy. I'm giving you more than you ever wanted on this. It's an advertisement for you.
This is what we're here for.
I know. It's an advertisement for you to get a pizza sponsor to pay for your podcast. But I mean, I grew
Not
up with
Domino's or Pizza Hut. I wouldn't, I
no.
wouldn't feel
No, it's
right
got-
taking that money.
no. It's gotta be like classic New York City pizza. I would also make the argument that New York City bagels are the best.
So I am originally from New York City. I now live in New Jersey, and in the office here. Yeah, I know.
Sacrilege.
Yeah, I know. And what's worse, I was in Queens and went to New Jersey instead of where I was supposed to go, which is Bayside or Long Island. As you know, if you're
I
in
know.
Queens, you're supposed to go to Long Island. If you're in Brooklyn, you're supposed to end up in New Jersey. But regardless, I'm here now, and I've been here for a while, and I love New Jersey. But
Good.
we have debates, and our the Sphere office is here in New Jersey, and we have debates about New York versus New Jersey bagels, and the New Jersey people are arguing with me about how the New Jersey bagels are better than the New York bagels, which every New Yorker I talk to is like, "What are you talking about? That makes no
What are you
sense."
talking about? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never had a New Jersey bagel specifically. Are they more cakey? Are they less dense?
Smaller, more dense, I find. Although maybe that's a generality. I haven't had enough, maybe as many bagels in New Jersey as I have in New York. But I don't know. When people talk about bagels, no one says, "Oh, New Jersey." So
Well, I
now,
think,
so I'm gonna upset people from Chicago, apparently, people
yeah, you
from
are.
New Jersey, and people
Yep.
who like Domino's and Pizza Hut. So I'm
I know, and
the
that's
full
okay. But
gamut.
I will tell you that if you want the whole New York bagel experience, you've got to go to a New York deli that has the lox, the
Hmm.
cream cheese, the capers, the onions, the tomato. It's sliced right. They put it on the. Oh, it's one of my favorite foods,
Hmm.
and I can't eat it anymore because I'm gluten free. Sad,
Oh,
sad, sad. But yeah, you're probably ticking off people from lots of different states. Just next time when you have somebody on from Chicago, you got to make sure you talk about why they love deep dish, right?
yeah. I probably should stop talking about pizza if we're gonna talk about deep dish pizza.
I know. Thank you so much for having me
So,
on. This was
Christina,
so
this
fun.
was amazing. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to the next one. You tell me when
Absolutely.
you could be on anytime, but we definitely have to have a follow up in several years or several months, probably when we'll just do this with our AIs. We'll just put our
Oh,
AIs
oh
on and
yeah,
have
I'll
them
have
chat
my
to each other.
avatar. I'll have my
Yeah,
avatar. You have your avatar. We'll chat. Yeah.
yeah.
No
We'll
problem.
just kind of oversight, make sure they're not saying anything crazy like, you know, the only good pizzas from New York or anything like that.
Such a
All right,
pleasure.
Christina, thank you very much. Have a great
Thank
day.
you. All
Thank you.
right, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Smells Like Identity Hygiene. Smells Like Identity Hygiene is a production of Sphere Technology Solutions, and our producer is Matthew Flynn. Until next time.